Hi, this is the Social Gelo with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Gelo with Angelo show.
What's up? And welcome to another episode of Social Gelo with Angelo podcast. As you saw in the title, Hybrid Warriors, the rise of mixed martial arts style and mixed martial artists. What do you get when BJJ meets karate or Muay Thai and blends it with Taekwondo? Meet the new generation of hybrid warriors mixing styles and breaking rules and reshaping martial arts as we know it. Wait a second, new generation? What am I talking about? I think this has been done for a lot longer than I think it has. Conrad, would you consider yourself the new generation of people who are mixing styles?
You know, sure, we're alive, so it's the new generation, but it's been going on forever.
So I'm here with Conrad. Oh my gosh, I was supposed to check in on your last name, brother. Can you say your last name real quick?
Bui.
All right, I was about to say that.
You just said it.
Yeah, you just said it for me. So I'm here with Conrad Bui. I found Conrad online, as I do many of the martial artists. I noticed one day he'd be doing BJJ and teaching a BJJ class. The other day, he would be wearing Muay Thai shorts, and I think it was Muay Thai, and doing kickboxing. And then another day, he's doing a Kung Fu form, and I'm like, is this guy a Kaji Kembo guy? What is going on? So I had to reach out to him, and that's why I'm here today. And Silat? All right, so Conrad, I have like a million questions, so let's just get started. What style did you start off with? We'll start with that.
All right. Well, first off, thanks for having me here. I love martial arts. I love talking to martial artists, and our listeners or viewers, if you're watching, you know, this is our passion. So I love spending this time hanging out and discussing martial arts. Yeah. My first art was in Aikido, and this was back in the late 70s when I was growing up. My family immigrated from Vietnam to the U.S. and right in the Aurora, Colorado, we moved over there. And so you can imagine a kid growing up in the late 70s, early 80s. We're like one of the few Asian families in the whole city. And so there was a lot of bullying happening, a lot of racism. And as a kid, I didn't even know that was racism, you know, how kids treated you different. I just never felt like I belonged. And so one day my parents were watching Enter the Dragon, and I was watching it with them, and I just thought, who is this? This is just amazing. And I was 8 years old at that time, and yeah, I was hooked. And I talked to a lot of martial artists. And there's usually three reasons they get into martial arts. One, they were bullied. Two, they watched the Bruce Lee movie, especially the older generation. Or three, they just felt like it had a draw to them. And so I'm all three. I'm all three. I was bullied. I saw Bruce Lee, and I'm drawn to it. I just thought it was so fascinating. And so I bugged my parents to let me go take martial arts. I was desperate, anything. And at that time, of course, my parents were like, oh, we don't have the money to pay for classes. You can't go to school. So, but your dad, he's a black belt in Aikido. And I was like, Aikido, what is that? And so I thought, okay, well, it's martial arts. Let me learn. I don't care. And so we did Aikido, and if our viewers know Aikido, there's no hiya and punching and kicking or anything like that. It's a lot of joint locks and throws and things like that. So I thought, what is this? I want the Bruce Lee stuff. And so but I still learned it. I still learned for a couple years, and he would wake us up before he went to work and train us. And you know, as a kid, waking up early like that, it's like, oh gosh, really? Do we have to wake up this early? And yeah, we did that for a couple years, and finally, my parents gave in, and they allowed me to go to a local Taekwondo school. And oh man, I was so happy. It was like opening up a treasure chest for me. Every time I went to class, I was just really happy. We kicked, we punched. So the first art was Taekwondo, and then it's a Taekwondo, a fusion of Taekwondo and what we called American freestyle karate, which was kind of like kickboxing, point fighting section of that art. And so I competed in the local tournaments, competed locally, nationally, as well as at Parker's International as well too. So my teacher was a big time point fighter, and that was just such an amazing experience. Around that time, though, I figured I was spending all this money on traveling and competing, and it was just sucking me dry, really. I would work summers to be able to compete. And I read this article by Jim Kelly. He plays William in Enter the Dragon, and he used to compete a lot. And the title of the article was "Trophies Don't Put Gas in My Car," which meant that competitors are usually very poor, And so I thought about that. It's like, wow, I just can't continue on this path as my livelihood. It's going to be very rough. And so when I was going to college, I met with a Jikundo instructor. He was also going to college at that time too, and he wanted a training partner to have so that he could keep his skills up. And luckily, I met him. We trained together for 2 years, and he just taught me as much as he could so that he could continue training his stuff. And oh man, Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, that was back in the late 80s, early 90s. And at that time, it was called JKD/Kali. So I learned both Jeet Kune Do and Kali at that time. And oh gosh, I was so happy. This was Bruce Lee's art. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, that was like the peak of technology, learning sticks and then learning the hand traps and everything like that. I thought, wow, this is so cool. At that time, also, Guru Dan Inosanto, who was the lead of the JKD groups, the concepts group, anyways. If you know Jeet Kune Do, they kind of split up the concepts versus the original group. And so the concepts group, at that time, Guru Dan Inosanto was getting into Silat. And he was talking up Silat like so much. I saw it in the magazines and everything. He said Silat's one of the most advanced arts he's ever learned, some of the best hand trapping and foot trapping he's seen, sweeps and sectoring and things like that. So I thought, wow, I'd love to learn Silat one day. And my Jikundo instructor, he was also learning a little bit of Silat here and there too from Guru Dan Inosanto, as well as some seminars that he took. And he showed me a little Silat too. But back in those days, it was like, shh, don't show anyone this, and they would show some moves and they'd show some applications.
That's all pre-internet, so they were hiding their stuff.
Yes. It was back in the days where things were secret once upon a time, and so after I went to school at the University of Colorado, I went to chiropractic college, and that chiropractic college was in San Jose, California. And lo and behold, there was a Silat instructor there. Yeah, and he taught, he was one of the clinical professors at the chiropractic school. And oh man, again, I was like a kid in a candy store. Oh my goodness, Silat! And yeah, I met another student. He did martial arts, and he told me about Dr. Andre, who was the Silat instructor, as well as the clinical professor, and he would make introductions for me. And so I went and met Dr. Andre, and oh man, it was the same Silat system that Guru Dan Inosanto was learning. And so, yeah, so I was hanging around in the clinic all day and learning from him, as well as at his house and at the seminars that he would give as well too. So, geez, I'm so happy, the whole Silat thing. And yeah, Silat really blew my mind because before then, it was very long range, taekwondo, point fighting, very long range. Even the Jikundo was getting closer, but the Silat's very tight range. It's almost like clinch range, where you can sweep and throw and trap and things like that. And so totally blew my mind. It's a very concepts-based system where you're learning concepts so that you're not really learning so many techniques, but the concepts on how to blend those techniques logically.
And then
if
I can ask a quick question, I had a few episodes back, and you can check it out. I had what seemed like a redundant episode. It was, what is Muay Thai kickboxing. That was the title, and it
Mhm.
seemed kind of like everyone's like, I know what Muay Thai kickboxing is.
Mhm.
But what I found out when I interviewed my guest, and big shout out to Rob Rowland from his combat channel. So you check out Rob Rowland, check out his channel. But he did that episode with me, and he's a kickboxing instructor, and he warned me that he's not a historical kickboxing instructor,
Mhm.
but still, as a instructor, he knows quite a bit about Muay Thai. And if I understood him correctly, he was saying that what most people are calling Muay Thai kickboxing is actually a blend of several Asian kickboxing styles, and Silat came up in that conversation. Like he was saying, really, people are saying Muay Thai kickboxing because that's the sport, but when you really look at it, there are several shoot-off styles, and they all just kind of go to Thailand, but it's not all rooted in Thailand. It's rooted in Indonesia. It's rooted in the South Asian countries. All have their own kind of versions, and Muay Thai just happened to be the expression that people understood the most. Is that off? Is Silat involved in all that too? Is
Yeah,
Silat involved?
yeah. I'll be right back. I need to plug in my computer. It's about to
Oh,
die.
okay,
Give me
okay,
just a
okay,
second.
okay, okay. What?
And the Southeast Asian area, it's just a big mishmash. I think there was a lot of trade, especially with the sea routes and everything like that. Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines. It was just a big mishmash, and I think the rule set creates the sport, which creates the application. So depending on the rule set of a certain sport, you'll get a certain way of doing things efficiently, and that's where Muay Thai came from. But you know, a punch, elbows, knees, every art has that. You put it in a skill set where people start to look for more efficiency. I don't care if you took this rule set and put it over in Africa, or you put this rule set over in Europe. They'll probably end up with something very similar if you had that similar rule set. So yeah, you know, I'm sure all these countries, we all share very similar things, and with a certain rule set, each athlete, each coach, they're looking for what's maximum efficiency, so their competitor, their students have an edge. And so, yeah, again, if you took this rule set and put it anywhere, you'd end up pretty close to Muay Thai. Just like MMA, you have that rule set, and it doesn't matter if you're practicing MMA in Japan or MMA in China or MMA in the US. You throw them in the cage, they look pretty similar.
So you're practicing Salat, and it's now we're in the 80s,
Yeah,
80s,
we're in the early 90s now.
early 90s now. All
Yeah.
right. What happened next?
All right, so yeah, I learned Silat from Dr. Andre. I eventually became a guru under him. Oh, in the meantime, you know, I have a fifth degree black belt in Taekwondo. I'm also an instructor in Jikundo, and I earned my guru certification under Dr. Andre in Silat Sarak. And then I graduated chiropractic college in San Jose, California, and then I'm going to move back to Denver, Colorado. And when I graduated, Dr. Andre, who's my Silat instructor, he said, "Oh, Denver, Colorado. One of the DeTors brothers lives in Denver, Colorado. The DeTors brother is the teachers who taught Guru Dan in Osanto." And so I thought, "Are you kidding me?" And then he said, "I can make the introduction." And so yeah, he made the introduction. I met up with Willem DeTors, one of the DeTors brothers. In fact, he's the last surviving of the DeTors brothers. The DeTors brothers, they basically pioneered Silat, and especially Silat Sarak in the U.S. And of course, by being teachers of Guru Dan in Osanto, they became very famous as well too. And so yeah, I went back, learned Kuntao Silat, and so Uncle Bill, as he likes to be called, he taught both a Chinese art called Kuntao, and then also the Silat arts from Indonesia as well too. So I learned Kuntao Silat from him. I took classes from him twice a week, and for 10 years. And then, of course, also attended seminars that he gave. I accompanied him to seminars that he gave. He was very active on the seminar circuit. And then at that time also, he has a friend named Wayne Welsh, and Uncle Wayne, as I call him, he teaches Bagua Tai Chi, and Xing Yi, which are the Chinese internal arts. And oh man, I always wanted to learn that as a kid because I'm a nerd. I call myself a martial arts nerd. And oh man, since I was a kid, I was really heavy into the philosophy, into the internal development, into the whole myth of it all. You know, I loved it, and I still love it to this day. And so Uncle Bill had a friend who taught Bagua Tai Chi and Xing Yi, and he introduced me to him, and so I learned from Uncle Wayne twice a week as well too. At the same time, I was learning from Uncle Bill, and so Bagua has just so many forms. It's your traditional Chinese art where the first set has like 116 moves. And it's like, oh my gosh! But hey, you know, a lot of people might poo-poo katas or forms. I think there's a lot of benefits to doing it. Of course, the number one benefit is health. Most likely, we're going to succumb to something like heart disease, cancer, or diabetes, or dementia, rather than someone punching us in the face or stabbing us or shooting us. All right. So by doing forms, it's healthy. And also, it's really good for your brain. There's research that has shown or suggested, it hasn't shown it, it's just merely suggests that people who dance a lot, they have really good cognitive processes as they age. And so I believe forms and martial arts too will impart that upon you as well too. So I think forms are just also a great way to preserve tradition. It's a great way to pass down a system to somebody else, and just a nerdy thing to do. So I'm gonna do forms. I love forms. So that was all in Denver, Colorado, in that area. And then after about 12 years of practicing chiropractic there, I hired some associates and I got them to take over my practice. And then I moved to San Francisco, California, because we have family over here, and we want to be with family in San Francisco. So right by my house was a Muay Thai gym. And I thought, oh man, I always wanted to do Muay Thai. Yeah, and so I thought, you know, coming from a traditional martial arts background, I've never been in a Muay Thai gym before. So I thought, oh, these guys are going to be dragging their knuckles on the ground, grunting at you, you know, and just trying to beat the heck out of you. And so I was kind of nervous coming into that school, you know, even though I'm a martial artist and I've been doing martial arts all my life, I was a little nervous. What am I going to expect here? But no, super nice people, very friendly, very welcoming, of course. And yeah, I got into the Muay Thai. Luckily, my teacher, Kru Sam, he's from Thailand. He teaches very traditional Muay Thai. And you know, we're all into the bowing and the Sawadee Krap and the philosophy of the Thais, always smiling and welcoming, and you know, they'll kick your ass and smile at you while they're doing it, kind of place, you know. And so, lovely gym, lovely people. I've been there for almost 20 years now. And so in the Muay Thai gym, there was guys doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And you know, 20 years ago, it's early, and we had a second degree black belt back then. I thought, oh my gosh, a second degree, because back in those days, the blue belts were still teaching.
Oh yeah, no, I was, excuse me. Yeah, I had Tom Tinlopoulos. I'm sorry, Tom, if I messed up your name, because that's a lot of syllables. He was on here explaining the same thing about how back then, blue belt would be like finding a black belt, and their black belts were just legends. You never saw one,
right?
So you got really lucky if 20 years ago you found a black. If let alone you said it was a first degree black belt, like
a second degree,
black belt. Yeah, that's
that was super rare, even in the California area. Yeah, and so yeah, I saw them rolling on the ground, and I looked too. I was like, I always wanted to do this, but you know, Muay Thai classes were already killing me. I mean, oh man, I was just dead after those classes. And so I thought, I'll just wait a little bit till I get in shape a little bit more. And yeah, so after a year, I jumped in with the Jiu-Jitsu guys and loved it. Of course, we've switched teachers a few times already. People move and things like that. But yeah, stayed with that, and that's where I'm at today. During COVID, we there was no contact or anything like that. You couldn't go to schools or anything. So I took up Iaido, and Iaido is the art of drawing the sword, the samurai culture. And so I always wanted to do that. And so I thought, wow, this is a perfect time because you can learn it online, kind of. It's not ideal, but it doesn't really require too much contact. It's a lot about just self-perfection. And so, perfect time for me to do that. And so I've been doing Iaido since COVID times.
So we ended with Iaido and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you don't mind me asking, what rank are you in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I'm a second degree black belt.
You're a second degree black belt? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And I come from a background, and every school's different. I come from a background where our teachers, my teachers competed a lot. One of my teachers, believe it or not, he received his black belt in Brazil in 2 years, which is only phenoms do that because these guys were competing every week. And I tell my students this: every time you compete, it pulls you 3 to 6 months further into your training because it really shows the holes in your games and your strength and weaknesses. It really pulls those out. And so my teachers were competing like almost every week. And so they were highly competitive. And so I come from a very competitive type of jiu-jitsu. I competed a lot at white belt, blue belt, purple belt. I slowed down at brown belt, and even at brown belt at the American Cup, I was able to, at a brown belt, win my division, which is the featherweight brown belt division, as well as the absolute brown belt division too. And that was crazy because that was the first time I competed in absolute. My teacher just threw me in there, and I was thinking of running out the Coliseum. No, seriously, I was like, looking at my friends thinking, seriously? I'm a featherweight. I don't belong here. And I was seriously thinking of, I asked some of my friends, some of my classmates, should I go home? I don't think I'll get injured. What are the odds of a featherweight winning this thing? And they said, you better not, because Monday you come in class, Diego, who's the professor, Diego will kill you. So I said, oh God. Yeah, it just goes to show if you just put it out there and you try your best, good things can happen. And so, I'm happy I stayed around and I didn't run and get creamed on Monday. So, our school's really competitive. I don't believe everyone's jiu-jitsu journey has to include competition, but if it does, one thing on a personal level, I think it made me a better person, like understanding how to win, how to lose, managing stress and being comfortable with stress as well too. There's a lot of benefits to it. And again, like I tell my students, each competition brings you 3 to 6 months further along in your journey. So if you can compete.
So we talked about in the very beginning of this about how this is the rise of mixed style martial artists. And I don't know, by now I probably lost the people who already wanted to troll this anyway. But if you stuck around this long,
Bye!
If you stuck around this long, thank you. You'll probably notice and I purposely worded this mixed style martial artists and not MMA, not mixed martial arts. As a sport, because this is a conversation that's been going on for a while now, and I've had several podcasts about it. But this idea that a lot of people tend to hear the word mixed martial arts or mixed martial artists, and then there's the MMA fighter, and those are two different things. And the general public doesn't recognize this. Most martial artists do recognize this, but the general public and the general internet doesn't understand what that means. And I say that all the time because I did Kajikembo, and I've talked about this before. Kajikembo is a mixed martial art by definition, but it is not MMA by definition. It can be,
Right.
but like you just said earlier, you touched on it real quick. You said, well, if you have a certain rule set for you're going to end up looking a certain way. And MMA is a sport rule set that has different things that you need to practice to get good at it. How would you make that distinction? How would you explain that to someone who's asking the same kind of question?
I think who was it? George St. Pierre had this quote that was like, a fighter, an MMA fighter, fights and trains for that fight, that competition day. A martial artist trains for self-perfection, to be a better person, to continue to evolve. And so, yeah, when you say MMA, I think the general public will think, or even a lot of martial artists will think UFC-ish, type of sporting event. And so, yeah, if you say MMA, that does cause a lot of people to categorize you into that combative sport right there.
Yeah. No, off camera, I was telling you about my story when I came out to Japan, and I think that was one of the mistakes I made, is I put MMA on there, and I was competing. It wasn't a big deal, but it was very different from, like, I had to create a whole fight team that focused on that, because even as an instructor, and here's a warning to anybody out there thinking of opening a school: if you put MMA on there, that's cool. It'll bring in people, but you got to get ready to create a separate program for those guys, because those guys need very different type of training to prepare them for what they're about to do, compared to your soccer mom who dropped off their kid to do an after school martial arts program, which is what I wanted to do. Which now, so yeah, just a little asterisk there for anybody watching.
Absolutely. And I think there's also a group of people out there that train martial arts just for the love of martial arts, not to compete, and maybe not even to be a badass, not to punch somebody in the face or be able to defend themselves, like Deadpool or something like that, or John Wick. They just do it for the love of doing it, and that's a great reason. That's a great reason. You're online a lot. I'm online a lot. You'll run into these armchair martial artists, or not even so much armchair. Maybe they are martial artists who train very hard, but and their whole thing is like, oh, that wouldn't work in a real fight, or that wouldn't work in the cage. That's not the point. You're missing the point. I look at martial arts like this. If you look at an iceberg, you only see the top 20 to 15% of that iceberg, and that's the fighting. That's the combat. That's the UFC. That's just that top of the iceberg, and that's easy to see. But underneath that iceberg, there's so much more. We need to be able to see underneath that iceberg and look more deeply into the reason why people do martial arts. And I think there's countless reasons, and they're all valid. We look at development of the mind. By practicing martial arts, it keeps our mind moving. It helps prevent dementia. It's just a good thing to do for the mind, for the body as well too. It's a healthy exercise. Some people do it for just exercise. Some people, and that's fine. That's a good enough reason. Some people, it's kind of their spiritual journey to meet people and to conquer challenges. It's a spiritual journey, and that spiritual journey doesn't necessarily have to include beating somebody up, and of course some people just do it socially. I have some friends who do jiu-jitsu just for the social thing. When COVID hit, we did online classes to stay in shape. They were nowhere to be found. But then when the schools opened up and we came back, they were like, hey, where's the party? And so everyone's got a different reason, and it's not all about just that tip of the iceberg that's so easy to see.
Yeah, as we get close to our wrap up, I really hope that anybody who follows my show can realize that it really doesn't matter what style you practice. I mean, it does if you have a certain goal in mind, and we've talked about that. Claude Lawson, retired military He talked a lot about that, the idea of having a profession that requires it. But you're touching, I think what I love about your journey and hearing your story, and it's something that you'll notice a lot if you listen to this podcast, you'll hear a lot of these stories. The idea of someone, and a lot of people, that very beginning when you said bullied, being bullied, having issues, trying to figure out how you're going to navigate a landscape. Everyone has very similar stories, and bullying seems to be a real big one, by the way. Like,
Right.
I think like 95%. It's a crazy number of the people I've interviewed all start with bullying. Even UFC coach John Hackleman, Chuck Liddell's coach, starts this story off with bullying. So like, it doesn't matter how tough you are now. At one point, as a child growing up, you felt vulnerable. You were vulnerable, and martial arts gave you the confidence to get you through it. And I think to me that is more important than the actual style. Like the fact that martial arts gives you that venue, and I hope anybody watching catches on to that thread. Hey, you know, like it's not everyone's here to beat someone up, and at the same time, if you love doing it, it makes you feel good. Martial arts is weird because any other thing like tennis, let's just grab tennis. Let's throw martial arts out of the way. Let's just grab tennis. If in the tennis community, or I'll just grab running, because I got into running. And one triathlon. We'll go triathlon. I got into triathlon when I was 40 years old, and the first thing I realized was, wow, like everyone's really, really nice. And not to say that martial artists aren't really, really nice, but the triathlon community is like, you're a triathlete. Wow, great. End of story. That's it. Not how many competitions have you done, not what position, not how fast do you go, none of that. It was just, you're a triathlete, the end. That's awesome. And I would really love for the martial arts community to get to that point too. Hey, you're a martial artist, that's awesome.
Yes.
The end. That's great. And it doesn't matter, the fact that you're out there doing it should be enough, in my opinion.
Right.
So before we end up, I know you have a lot going on, man. So I don't even know, where do you want to send everyone for everything? Where should they find you? Is there any, if you have any type of online courses or anything like that, now's the time to mention it.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm pretty active there. Just search up Conrad Bui. You'll find me. We do have a company, TIGA Tactics, and TIGA Tactics is basically it evolved from my own frustration in wondering what I would do in a self-defense situation, because I have so many potential responses. I really didn't know what I would use. Would I sidekick them? Would I go in there and clinch them up and try and knee them? Would I try to take them down to the ground and use Jiu-Jitsu? You know, and so what I did is, myself and my cousin, we sifted through a bunch of video footage, CCTV footage, cell phone footage about violence, and because I was so stuck in martial arts, I really didn't know how people attacked you. You know, in Silat they attack you a different way. In Muay Thai they attack you a different way. In Jiu-Jitsu they attack you a different way. Even in Kali and the knife fighting, they hold their knife out there. You know, people won't do that. And so I had to figure out how people attacked you. Then I looked for logical solutions, and some of them didn't pan out because I pressure tested these things. And the ones that got me in trouble more often, we kind of threw those out. And the ones that were more successful, there's nothing 100% proof, but there's things that for me anyways, was more successful. And so we put those in, and then so after all the footage, maybe hundreds of hours of footage, we found that, and this correlates with FBI findings on assaults as well too. You'll likely, if you're assaulted, punches are often involved that can create trauma to your body. Knives, knife stabbing, things like that. Impact weapons, and of course firearm threats as well too. So we have 4 of those programs. It's just my accumulation of knowledge as well too. Come and join us. We have a podcast as well too. So our our podcast partner. His name's Evan. He's also a former special forces officer, and so he puts his background in there with us as well too. He's also a TIGA tactics instructor as well too. And so come join us. It's a free podcast. We just had one on how to overcome injuries. I'm a doctor of chiropractic, and I'm also an athlete still. Not a super competitive one, but I still compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so we talked about injuries and how I'm over 50 years old. I'm almost mid-50s. And, how I navigate those things and what I might tell the athletes as well, too. So come and join us for our podcast as well, too.
And what's the name of the podcast again?
I think it's just under TIGA Tactics.
Oh, okay. All right. So look up TIGA Tactics and you can find their podcast as well. Well, Conrad, thank you so much for taking the time to break down all those concepts and all that stuff. You answered most of the millions of questions I had, and I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Hey, thanks for having me on here, and whoever's still left watching, thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks. And one of these episodes once a week about martial arts, Social Gelo with Angelo podcast. Share, like, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.